Hello everyone, welcome to Investigation True Crime Cases channel. In this video, we dive into the heartbreaking tragedy that struck the mountain temple in Chiang Rai, Thailand. This case has sent shockwaves through the Buddhist community. On June 20th, 2020, in a secluded temple tucked away in the lush green mountains of Chiang Rai province, a horrific crime unfolded, shattering the peace and serenity that once defined this sacred place, leaving an indelible mark on the temple's once esteemed legacy. The abbot, Fra Wiset, 45, once revered as a beacon of compassion and wisdom, now faces charges for the murder of his cherished disciple, 28-year-old nun Meiji Nari. Meiji Nari's sudden death, initially believed to be a suicide, swiftly became the center of a serious investigation when troubling signs were uncovered. As the truth about Fra Wisu's forbidden relationship and cruel actions gradually comes to light, the community must not only face the loss of a young life, but also the collapse of trust and respect for a once revered abbot. This is a story of sin, betrayal, and the cost of concealing the truth, leaving a painful lesson about greed and corruption even in the most seemingly peaceful places. Nestled among the lush green mountains of Chiang Rai, Wat Phra Sang Wan is one of the oldest and most sacred temples in the region. Built in the 14th century, the temple is not only famous for its beautiful architecture and sparkling golden Buddha statues, but also for the reverence of thousands of devotees from all over. Every year, Wat Phra Sang Wan attracts thousands of pilgrims and tourists to worship, seeking peace and blessings. With its reputation as a sacred place and the spiritual center of the region, the temple is always crowded with a constant flow of people. The solemn rituals and daily prayers at the temple attract a large number of followers, creating a sacred, peaceful but also mysterious atmosphere. The abbot Fra Wiset, with his compassion and erudition, has led the temple for many years and has become a symbol of sacredness, respected by everyone. Under his leadership, the temple has become increasingly prosperous, not only spiritually, but also materially. At large and small ceremonies, on festive occasions, or even on normal days, the temple receives huge amounts of donations from followers. This money is not only used to maintain the temple's operations, but also to support the surrounding community, further enhancing the reputation and prestige of Fra Wisu. The abbot, Fra Wisu, a 45-year-old man with a kind face and calm eyes, has been leading Wat Phra Sang Wan for more than a decade. Having been ordained as a monk at a young age, Fra Wisu quickly became one of the most respected monks in the community, thanks to his compassion, erudition, and ability to preach deeply about Buddhist teachings. However, Fra Wisu does not limit himself to spiritual activities. He also has extensive and close relationships with many famous people in the Thai entertainment industry. Many famous artists, from actors, singers to directors, come to the temple to seek advice or receive his blessings. These relationships have contributed to his prestige and reputation in the media. Not only that, Fra Wisu is also known for his close relationships with many big shots in the government. These relationships not only helped him maintain the stability and development of the temple, but also gave him a strong position in decisions related to religion and society. The connection with the political world gave Fra Wisu a profound influence, making him one of the important figures, not only in the Buddhist community, but also in other areas of social life. However, behind the curtain of respect and worship, few people expected that Fra Wisu was hiding dark secrets, one of which was an affair with the nun Meiji Nari, which would lead to a shocking case that would shock the whole community. Meiji Nari, a 28-year-old nun at Wat Phra Sang Wan, was once a beautiful and successful woman. Born and raised in a wealthy family, Nari was well educated from a young age, and soon became one of the youngest women in the business sector in Bangkok. With her sharp intellect and natural talent, she quickly built a solid career for herself and had a happy family with her husband whom she loved dearly. However, Nari's life took a dark turn when she discovered that the husband she trusted had betrayed her. This betrayal not only broke her heart, but also led to the complete collapse of both her career and family. The unbearable pressure and pain caused Nari to fall into a mental crisis, losing her direction in life. In an effort to find peace and liberation for her wounded soul, Nari decided to leave everything behind and go to Wat Phra Sang here. She hoped to find peace and serenity through cultivating her mind and following the path of Buddhism. When Meiji Nari stepped into the gates of Wat Phra Sangwan, she carried a secret pain in the determination to find peace of mind. Despite having abandoned all the glamour of the outside world, Nari's natural beauty and elegance still exuded an irresistible charm. From the very first days of her appearance at the temple, Meiji Nari attracted the attention of many people. But the most surprising thing was that she caught the eye of the abbot, Phra Wisot. Phra Wisot, with many years of practice and his inherent calmness, always kept his distance from his disciples, maintaining the strictness and respect that everyone had for him. However, Meiji Nari's appearance stirred a strange feeling in his heart. She was not just an ordinary nun, but also a woman with a gentle beauty, carrying deep feelings that he could not help but notice. Meiji Nari's combination of beauty and pain gradually attracted Phra Wisot. He began to pay more attention to her, often trying to talk to her and share Buddhist teachings with her. After realizing Meiji Nari's irresistible charm, the abbot Phra Wisot began to carry out an elaborate plan to seduce and brainwash her, gradually making her an indispensable part of his life. He knew that Meiji Nari was in a weak state of mind after personal tragedies, and he decided to take advantage of this to bring her under his control. Starting with advice and sharing of Buddhist teachings, Phra Wisot often invited Meiji Nari to listen to private teachings or participate in special meditation sessions organized by him. He used gentle, respectful words, giving the impression that he truly cared for her as a special disciple. These conversations did not stop at imparting knowledge, but gradually moved to more personal topics, making Meiji Nari feel comforted and have absolute trust in Phra Wisot. Gradually, Phra Wisot began to create a psychological dependence on Meiji Nari. He constantly emphasized that she needed to trust and rely on him to overcome her past suffering. His advice and guiding words gradually made Meiji Nari lose her independence. Becoming more and more dependent on him both mentally and emotionally, she began to see him not only as a teacher, but also as the only person who could bring her safety and peace. When he felt that Meiji Nari was completely drawn into this relationship, Phra Wisot began to move from seduction to a plan to possess her. He used gentle, sweet but also meaningful words to hint at a more intimate relationship between them, emphasizing that their feelings were a natural thing, a deep connection that only the two of them could understand. He took advantage of Meiji Nari's moments of loneliness and weakness to further advance. One evening, the abbot Phra Wisot called Meiji Nari to his private room under the pretext of discussing temple-related business. When Meiji Nari entered the room, the door was closed, and immediately Phra Wisot hugged her tightly, showing an unexpected action that exceeded the usual teacher-student boundary. He began to use persuasive words, saying that only she could help him overcome the difficulties and temptations he was facing. Phra Wisot enticed Meiji Nari to serve him, emphasizing that this would not only help him, but also be a way for her to find meaning and purpose in life after the suffering she had experienced. Due to her lingering loneliness and weakness after the events in her life, combined with the influence of Phra Wisot's persuasive words, Meiji Nari agreed. That night, they had a passionate night together, breaking the entire tranquility of the temple. It was the beginning of a forbidden and dangerous relationship, leading to serious consequences in the case later. After that first affair, the forbidden relationship between the abbot Phra Wisot and the nun Meiji Nari did not stop. They began to meet secretly in Phra Wisot's private room in Wat Phra Sangwan. Each time they met, they carefully chose a time late at night when the other monks were fast asleep, or when the temple was most deserted. These meetings did not stop at private conversations, but also included actions that crossed the line, deepening the dangerous relationship. Meiji Nari, who was convinced and felt responsible for Phra Wisot, gradually became dependent on these meetings. In addition to the meetings at the temple, Phra Wisot also created other opportunities to continue this relationship without being discovered. One of the tricks he used was to organize prayer ceremonies at local people's homes. Whenever he received invitations from devotees' families, he often chose Meiji Nari to go with him on the grounds that she was one of the most trusted nuns in the temple. After completing the prayer ceremony, instead of returning to the temple immediately, Phra Wisot and Meiji Nari often made excuses that it was too late or too far to return, and they went to the hotel to be intimate. At the hotel, their relationship continued in absolute secrecy. Phra Wisot always arranged for them to stay in the same room. Here, they continued the actions that both knew were wrong, but still could not stop. These secret encounters became more frequent, and each time, Frau Wusud tightened his control over Meiji Nuri. He not only exploited her feelings, but also her religious beliefs, making her feel that she was doing the right thing, even though deep down, Meiji Nuri knew that she was on a path of no return. The relationship continued in secret, with each meeting only causing them to sink deeper into the quagmire of sin. After a long period of maintaining an intimate and secret relationship with the abbot Frau Wieset, Meiji Nuri began to notice unusual signs in her body. At first, she felt tired and dizzy frequently. She began to notice unusual changes in her body, including morning sickness, her body becoming more sensitive, and her menstrual cycle suddenly being interrupted. Meiji Nuri tried to hide these signs, fearing that the truth about her relationship with Frau Wieset might be exposed if someone in the temple noticed. However, she herself could not help but feel increasingly worried about her health. Finally, after the symptoms could no longer be denied, Meiji Nuri decided to go to a small clinic outside the temple for a checkup. There, she received the news she feared the most. Meiji Nuri was pregnant. This news sent her into a state of panic, not knowing what to do next. Pregnancy in her situation was not only a serious scandal, but could also lead to unpredictable consequences for both her and Frau Wieset. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Meiji Nuri faced a difficult choice. She knew that hiding the truth would only make the situation worse, but she also did not dare to think about revealing this, as it could lead to the collapse of the entire life she had built since entering the temple. In a state of panic, Meiji Nuri decided to inform Frau Wieset about her condition, hoping that he could help her find a solution. When Meiji Nuri informed Frau Wieset that she was pregnant, he immediately fell into a state of panic and extreme anxiety. This not only threatened his reputation and position at Wat Phra Sangwan, but could also lead to serious consequences for both of them if the matter were discovered. For an abbot like Frau Wieset, revealing that he had an illicit relationship with a female nun and impregnated her was an unacceptable scandal. Frau Wieset was well aware that if this matter were to be revealed, not only would his reputation be ruined, but also that of the temple, and he would face severe punishment from both the law and the Buddhist church. In a panic, he began to contemplate ways to eliminate Meiji Nuri, seeing it as the only way to protect himself and maintain his position. The first step in Frau Wieset's plan was to try to convince Meiji Nuri to keep her pregnancy a secret. He promised to take care of everything and ensure that her life would not be affected if she complied with his demands. However, inside, Frau Wieset had already begun to plan to eliminate her completely, as he knew that if he let anything slip, the whole affair could be exposed. Frau Wieset then began to isolate Meiji Nuri from those around her. He limited her contact with other members of the temple and encouraged her to rest more in her room, using the excuse that she needed time to calm down and focus on her practice. On June 20th, 2020, Meiji Nuri was found brutally murdered in her room at Wat Phra Sangwan in Chiang Rai Province. The incident was discovered early in the morning when some other nuns in the temple came to call Meiji Nuri to attend the usual morning service. When she did not appear, they decided to enter the room to check and discovered the horrific scene. Meiji Nuri's body was found in a state of severe trauma, with many fatal wounds on her body. Her room was in disarray, but there were no obvious signs of forced entry from the outside, raising questions about the real cause of the incident. Her personal belongings, including her clothes and belongings, were intact, with no signs of robbery. This led investigators to suspect that this was not a random attack from the outside, but could be related to relationships within the temple. Immediately, the police were called to the scene to conduct an investigation. They sealed off the area and collected evidence around it. The autopsy results show that Meiji Nuri died from multiple fatal stab wounds. Initial traces showed no signs of a struggle, suggesting that the victim may have been attacked by surprise or restrained before being murdered. This incident quickly shocked the Buddhist community in the area, especially the Buddhists of Wat Phra Sangwan. During the investigation into Meiji Nuri's death, the police focused on gathering evidence and learning about the victim's personal relationships. During the autopsy, the medical examiner discovered an unusual detail: Meiji Nuri was pregnant. This discovery immediately changed the direction of the child, and was her pregnancy related to the reason for her murder? The police began to dig deeper into her private life, especially any intimate relationships she may have kept secret. Investigators interviewed temple residents and frequent visitors to learn more about Meiji Nari. They discovered that she had a particularly close relationship with the abbot Fra Viset, who often called her to his private room to discuss work. Initially, these meetings were considered completely legal and normal, but with the news of Meiji Nari's pregnancy, the police began to review these events from a new perspective. Witnesses at the temple also provided information about Meiji Nari and Frau Viset, often going to prayer services at people's homes together. This coincidence further raised suspicions about their relationship. Based on this evidence, the police focused their investigation on Frau Viset. They discovered that he had recently shown signs of anxiety and frequently mentioned protecting the temple's reputation. This further increased suspicion that Frau Viset might be directly involved in Meiji Nari's death, especially since her pregnancy could cause a serious scandal if discovered. The investigation results show that Meiji Nari's death was not a random murder, but may have been the result of a carefully calculated plan to conceal the truth about her pregnancy. The police continue to collect more evidence to clarify Friar Wisot's role in this case, and expand the investigation into his relationships and actions in the period before Meiji Nari was murdered. During the investigation into Meiji Nari's death, investigators not only faced difficulties in gathering evidence, but also pressure from powerful figures in the political world. Frau Wisot, with his extensive connections to many politicians and high-ranking officials, became a hotspot in the investigation. Some politicians with connections to him did not hesitate to use their influence to pressure investigators, asking them to limit or stop digging deeper into the case. These pressures created a tense investigative environment, as investigators had to weigh between pursuing the truth and facing the risk of being obstructed by outside forces. However, at the same time, the press and public began to pay attention to this case. News of the death of Nun Meiji Nari at a famous temple, along with the discovery of her pregnancy, became a hot topic in the newspapers and media. The public was extremely angry and curious about the mysteries surrounding the case, especially when there were rumors about the involvement of the abbot Frau Viset. Public pressure and intense media attention created a counter-pressure, forcing the authorities to continue investigating in a transparent and public manner. This public interest gave the investigators more motivation and determination to continue pursuing the case, despite efforts to prevent it from the powerful. They understood that, with the close supervision of the press and public, any concealment or omission would lead to serious consequences. This created an environment where the investigators not only had to solve the case, but also had to ensure that justice was properly served, without being influenced by any political pressure. With a strong sense of responsibility and support from the public, the investigators continued to dig deeper into the evidence, regardless of the risks, to clarify the truth behind Meiji Nari's death. Thanks to the attention of public opinion and the press, the case was pushed to a new level. Not just a simple criminal case, but also a struggle between justice and power, between the truth and the forces that want to cover it up. After many weeks of thorough investigation, the police collected a large amount of evidence and testimonies from people living and working around Wat Phra Sangwan. Each piece of the case gradually began to come together, creating a clear picture of what happened before and after the death of the nun, Meiji Nari. Many people recounted that they had seen the abbot often calling her to his private room at late hours, and the two of them often went together to prayer ceremonies outside the temple. These suspicions were further reinforced when some witnesses even mentioned seeing them staying at the hotel after the ceremonies, which was not in accordance with strict monastic etiquette. Pressure from the public and the media, this undeniable evidence forced the abbot Frau Viset to face the truth. After repeatedly denying and trying to avoid responsibility, he finally confessed to the investigators. Frau Viset admitted that he had had an illicit relationship with Meiji Nari, and when he discovered that she was pregnant, he feared that the scandal would ruin his reputation and career. In order to protect himself, Frau Viset planned to murder Meiji Nari, and on the night of June 20th, 2020, he carried out this cruel act. Frau Viset admitted that he used force to restrain and murder her, then tried to stage the crime scene to conceal his actions. However, his plan failed when the evidence collected clearly pointed to his involvement. Frau Viset's guilty plea not only ended the investigation, but also came as a great shock to the Buddhist community and the people who trusted and respected him. The case shook the faith of many people, and was a strong reminder that no one is above the law, and that justice will eventually prevail. After pleading guilty, Fra Wisset was arrested and charged with murder, and will be punished according to the law. The case was quickly brought to trial at the Chiang Rai Provincial Court. The trial attracted great public and media attention, with a large crowd of people and reporters attending to follow. At the trial, the prosecutor presented a full set of evidence gathered during the investigation, including witness statements, autopsy results, and physical evidence from the scene. This evidence clearly demonstrated that Fra Wisset had planned and carried out the murder of Nunmeji Neri to conceal her pregnancy and protect his reputation. Faced with the undeniable evidence, Fra Wisset admitted his crime in court. The defense attorney attempted to mitigate the charge by emphasizing the mental pressure he had endured, but this was not enough to change the serious nature of the crime. After a brief trial, the court found Fra Wisset guilty of murder and sentenced him to the maximum sentence. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and was stripped of all religious titles and positions in the temple. The case has been closed, leaving profound consequences for the Buddhist community and society at large, and emphasizing that justice will always be served regardless of pressure or power. This case has shaken the faith of many people in the religious system. Do you think there are more mysteries yet to be solved? Leave your thoughts on this case in the comments section below. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to follow the upcoming episodes.